Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Media. I am Dr. Nik NIKAM, and this is a presentation on heart health. The focus of this presentation is get intermittent fasting benefits in 7 steps. In this presentation, I'm going to be talking about what happens to the food we in this presentation we're going to be talking about what happens to the food we eat. What is intermittent fasting? What are the benefits of intermittent fasting? How do we begin an intermittent fasting? What is our endpoint? And diet for intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is not useful unless it is combined with the sustained exercise program. Intermittent fasting side effects we're going to look at, and we're going to look at that intermittent fasting is not for everyone and conclude with the 7 steps to successful intermittent fasting. So let us begin with what happens to the food that we eat. Once we eat, the food contains the main 3 major macro ingredients, namely the proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. The proteins are broken down into amino acids and absorbed in the intestines, and the carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, which is absorbed into the bloodstream, and this glucose enters the liver and muscle where it is stored as glycogen. Any excess amount of glucose that is not utilized by the body for storage in glycogen or in metabolism is going to be converted into fatty acids, and they're going to go into the fatty tissue for the rest of your life. But it is important to remember that the liver and glucose in the muscles have a limited quantity. That means liver and muscles can only hold anywhere from 400 to 600 grams of glycogen. That is your immediate energy source, like the booster hydrogen in a rocket. That's when you really want to run or you want to squeeze your muscles or do anything, you use glucose. But in the long run, the glucose is essential, but the body can use fatty acids to burn for energy. In fact, birds use fatty acids when they are flying for hours and hours. And also, I'll tell you about some other things. So let us talk about what is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting has been defined in many different ways. Some people say you fast for 12 hours, then you eat whatever you're eating in limited quantities during the other 12 hours. Some people say you have to fast for 16 hours before you begin eating. What is the basis of this 12 hours or 16 hours? As I told you, the body stores 400 to 600 grams of carbohydrates. It takes approximately 10 to 12 hours to deplete all this glycogen from the muscle and liver sources. So there is very limited amount of carbohydrates available for immediate energy needs. So when you fast for 10 to 12 hours or up to 16 hours, then the body has to break down the fat and use the fatty acids for energy production. So the body has the ability to not only use fatty acids for energy production, it can also produce glucose in case your glucose level drops. So this is known as the Krebs cycle, where the proteins, carbohydrates, and fats come together and interchange depending upon the body's need. But when we exercise on top of fasting, we are going to be burning more fat because at this time there's no glycogen to provide the immediate energy for exercise. That's why if you do sustained exercise, even if it's stop and go, it will help to burn fat faster while you're doing the intermittent fasting. And when you're doing this intermittent fasting, basically you're going into what is known as the keto status, where there is production of ketones from breakdown of fatty acids. And this is a concept of the keto diet, where you prolong people for long periods of time and you completely reduce their carbohydrate intakes tremendously to let the body burn fat, and it systematically burns fat for every type of energy, and as a result it reduces body weight. The main purpose of intermittent fasting may be much more than just losing weight. We'll address that one in a minute. Did you know the heart muscle relies on fatty acids for its sustained work? If it were to depend on glucose, it can only beat for 12 hours or 24 hours. But beyond that, your heart beats for the length of your lifetime. And so it depends on fatty acids. If the heart muscle can survive on fatty acids for its lifetime, we should be able to train or reprogram our body to use fatty acids and fats for everyday energy consumption by reducing the amount of carbohydrates we take. Let's move on. And here is a little chart showing what happens to your blood sugar level every time you eat. And every time your blood sugar level goes up, a series of events happen, which I'm going to cover in the next slide. Every time you eat, your blood sugar goes up. You eat lunch and you snack in between, your blood sugar level is going up. But what is happening with this increase in blood sugar level is the increase in insulin level. The increase in insulin level pushes the glucose into the liver and muscles, and it is converted into glycogen. But the problem is you can only store 400 to 600 grams of glycogen in the muscle and liver. So the rest of the glucose that is there, which cannot go into glycogen storage, it will go into the unfortunate fat deposit. That is like throwing stuff in the attic, which you will never use, which you never need, but it's there collecting dust. And that's what happens. It collects dust in our bellies. Talking about the fat in our belly, in the hips, joints, everywhere. So the first step is we have to define what is our purpose of doing intermittent fasting. Is it for losing weight? Is it for maintaining good health? Is it for maintaining your sugar levels? You have to define. That's why take a picture before and after. Of course, the after comes after you've gotten on the program. Anyway, so you have to define your goal. If your goal is to lose small amount of weight, like 10, 15, 20 pounds, yes, intermittent fasting would help you in the short run. But this is not a program which you can use to lose like 50 to 100 pounds or 200 pounds. That's a different program altogether. The intermittent fasting is, a lot of it is basically based on science, calories, math. It is putting our muscles to meet the road. It's motivation, it's commitment, and more importantly, endurance. Staying with this program until we have accomplished our goals. Okay. How do we start in intermittent fasting? You have to select, do you want to fast for 12 hours or do you want to fast for 16 hours? The longer you fast, the better it is. And when you combine little exercise with the longer fasting, it will give you a much more benefit in terms of burning fat and reducing weight. So if you follow like a clock, 12 hours, if you should avoid eating late night dinners. 12 hours of fasting in the night, let's say from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. And you stick to one meal a day during the daytime. Replace a second meal with salads and lean meats. Use coffee or tea with sweetener, which adds very little calories to your diet. And use minimal breakfast with small amount of carbohydrates, maybe one toast with eggs, which provide you the good nutritious proteins. And don't replace carbs with fats and meats, fatty meats, as they recommend in a keto diet. The concept is, I think I have it in the next slide here. Yes, the concept is to reduce your total calorie intake altogether. The average working person, according to the diet instructions, says you need 2,600 calories, but your body can stay healthy by taking 1300 calories. So by just reducing it to 1300 calories, you're already cutting 50% of your calorie intake, most of which is, of course, sugar, which is going to be converted into fat. And that this is the whole purpose of your intermittent fast. Again, substituting coffee with sweeteners, eggs for breakfast, and it's the weekends that gets everybody, because with the kids and all these things, maybe planning more outdoor activities might help to reduce sitting in the kitchen and trying to stir up something for the kids, and in the process you end up eating more than the kids eat. Okay, so here is a little timetable. Here's a little roadmap of how you can plan your intermittent fasting. From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. you fast, mostly drink plenty of water. Yes, indeed, water, lime juice, and walk. Walk before you go to sleep, or walk when you get home from work. Between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., again, we talked about breakfast, which would include proteins. And when you're talking about proteins, you should avoid processed meat like sausage, bacon, sandwich meat, things like that. Again, exercise. Park your car at the end of the lot and walk. For lunch, I would say use salad, lean meat, and add exercise. 15 minutes, you got an hour break, walk 15 minutes. That will get you some extra calorie burning. And avoid snacks at all times. We need to avoid saturated fats. Anything that is solid, anything that looks white or yellow on meat, all those things need to be trimmed. And use vegetable oils like olive oil. That's what I use. There are other good vegetable oils which are rich in omega-3 fatty acids and polyunsaturated fatty acids. We should replace carbohydrates not with fat and meat, but with vegetables. And for the night, try some salad and grilled meat and add some more walking. This will get you on the right track of your goal of losing weight and staying thin. Exercise. Why is exercise important in terms of intermittent fasting benefits? Because on one hand, you're cutting down the calories by going into intermittent fasting, but that does not move the fat from the body, all this body fat that is sitting here, out of the body. In order to mobilize the fat inside the body, we need to do exercise. When we exercise, the body releases lipoprotein lipase, which is an enzyme that breaks down fat and brings that into the energy pool. When we exercise, the body also releases endorphins. It's kind of a morphine. It gives a natural high, which will help you to feel better. And these lipoprotein lipase work hours after you have finished exercising. Exercise also improves neurotrophic factors that protect nerve cells, nourish nerve cells, and improve brain function. So make it a habit to cover at least 10,000 steps throughout the day. It doesn't have to be, in one setting. And walk, take steps, and do all kinds of movements, body movements that will help to burn more fat. And when you're fasting and you're burning fat, you're burning a lot of calories. Okay, here are the 7 steps. I told you I was going to give you 7 steps. They are pretty straightforward and simple. Many of them I have already covered, and some of them I'm going to kind of reinforce here. Get a picture of yourself as a reference before you start. Write down your goal. Unless you write it down, you are not going to be able to accomplish your destination. Reduce your carbohydrates to 50 to 100 grams per day. That's what you had to do in order to get into keto status, where the body begins to burn fat for energy consumption. Exercise, exercise, exercise. I have already said it too many times. Snacks, no. Lean meat, yes. Solid fats, no. And salads, plenty. All right, here are some of the things that we should be careful about when you're trying to attempt intermittent fasting. Children should not be doing intermittent fasting. Pregnant women should not be doing intermittent fasting. Type 1 diabetes patients should not, because they lack insulin. They cannot use glucose appropriately. And on top of that, if you fast, you're going to drop the blood sugar significantly, which can give rise to problems. People who have eating disorders like bulimia, they should not be fasting. And people with medical conditions like heart or diabetes or kidney problem, who need to be on special diet on a regular basis, you should not do intermittent fasting, because that can interfere with your pre-existing medical conditions. And those people who are extremely underweight, like their BMI less than 16, they should not be fasting, because there's no benefit for them to do fasting. So ladies and gentlemen, intermittent fasting is not something designed to lose 50 to 100 pounds. It is good for mental health. It is good for weight loss of moderate degree. It's good for heart health, and it's also good for belt size. It is a new lifestyle. It is not something that you do for a few months and just drop it. Oh, I'm not getting any better, so I'm going to leave it. No. See, you do that for your heart health, which is very important. You do that for your diabetes, which is exceedingly important. It will also help to bring your blood pressure down with exercise. That's important. Staying slim is good, because you feel good and you project a positive image. Keeping heart healthy is very important. Feeling more energized is good. By getting into intermittent fasting and on a regular exercise program, you're going to be having more energy and more control and agility over your mind and body. I hope this has been useful to you in understanding the basic concept of what is intermittent fasting, and how many hours do you need to fast, and what are the things you need to do during fasting, and what are the things that you need to do to boost your fasting benefits. Thank you so much, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. I have numerous videos on heart healthy diet, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and also exercise. Please do watch them, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much.